Swell come to back my chat. This is our final and best offer. Let's see if the Iranians accept it or not. Thank you. So with this, U.S. Vice President JD Vance tapped the table in front of him twice and the press conference ended. So U.S.-Iran talks in Pakistan's capital Islamabad, which lasted for 21 hours, had ended without reaching any conclusion. See U.S. Vice President, who came to Pakistan for the talks, announced this at a press conference after 6 a.m. on Sunday. In the press conference, JD Vance said that Pakistan made its best effort to bridge the gap between the U.S. and Iran and reach an agreement. But the bad news is that we were unable to reach an agreement. The U.S. Vice President said that this news is not as bad for the U.S. as it is for Iran. There was no agreement, and we are going back to the U.S. At Pakistan's request, the U.S. and Iran had agreed to a 2-week ceasefire, and delegations from both countries had come to Islamabad for talks, and the talks between the parties took place at the Serena Hotel in Islamabad. The U.S. Vice President announced that the talks were fruitless, but did not clarify what impact the lack of an agreement would have on the 2-week temporary ceasefire about 2 hours after his press conference. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq also held a press conference and said that Pakistan would continue to play the role of mediator for the U.S.-Iran talks. It is important that both sides continue their commitment to the ceasefire. What were the terms that the U.S. and Iran could not agree on? Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, image source. Getty Images image caption. U.S. Vice President JD Vance, along with Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and other U.S. officials, arrived in the Pakistani capital on Saturday morning. At a press conference after the talks, the U.S. Vice President said, "We made it very clear what our red lines are, what we can and cannot agree on." According to JD Vance, and they, Iran, have decided that they will not accept our conditions. At this point, journalists asked the U.S. Vice President, clarify clearly which conditions have been rejected. In response, JD Vance said that he would not reveal all the details of the 21-hour talks that took place behind closed doors. But the simple thing is that we want assurances from them, Iran, that they will not build nuclear weapons, and that they will not acquire the equipment needed to acquire a nuclear capability. This is the main goal of the U.S. President, and we tried to achieve this goal through negotiations. The U.S. Vice President said that Iran's uranium enrichment capacity has already been destroyed. But are we seeing a willingness in Iran that they will never make nuclear weapons? We have not seen this willingness yet. In response to a question, JD Vance said that during the negotiations, there was also talk about Iran's frozen assets, but we could not reach a point where the Iranians would accept our conditions. I think we showed a lot of flexibility. The president told us that you have to go to the negotiations in good faith and make your best efforts to reach an agreement. We did that, but unfortunately there was no progress. JD Vance was asked how many times he contacted President Trump during the negotiation process and what he said. The U.S. Vice President replied, "We have been in constant contact with the president. I don't know how many times in the last 21 hours, probably a dozen times. We have been in constant contact with Admiral Cooper CENTCOM Commander, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Pat Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and the entire national security team. We've been in constant contact because we were negotiating in good faith." Concluding the press conference, U.S. Vice President JD Vance said, "We are going with this simple proposal that a mechanism of understanding be developed. This is our final and best offer. Let's see if the Iranians accept it or not." After this brief press conference, JD Vance went to the Nurkan Air Base in Rawalpindi and flew back to the United States. Pakistani Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir, Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, and Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi bid him farewell. Asim Munir and JD Vance. Image source, AFP via Getty Images, image caption. The U.S. Vice President left after a brief press conference. The talks were fruitless due to the lack of flexibility in the U.S. position. Iranian media claim the Iranian delegation, led by the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bakir Kalibaf, arrived in Islamabad on the intervening night of Friday and Saturday, while U.S. Vice President JD Vance, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and other U.S. officials arrived in the Pakistani capital on Saturday morning. The two delegations met separately with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, and Field Marshal Asim Munir, among other officials. Following these meetings, the Pakistani government issued statements saying that Pakistan would continue to play its role as a mediator and hoped that the talks on Saturday would prove to be a step towards resolving the dispute. Pakistan officials told BBC Urdu that first, messages were exchanged between the Iranian and American delegations through Pakistan, after which the visiting delegations held talks for 2.5 hours in the presence of Pakistani officials. After this, a 1-hour break was taken and technical aspects of the demands presented were discussed between Iranian and American experts. According to Pakistani officials, the exchange of messages on technical aspects continued until late at night. Iran's Tasnim news agency claimed that the reason for the talks ending inconclusively was the lack of flexibility in the American position. According to Tasnim, the delegation that arrived in Pakistan, led by Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakir Kalibaf, met with the army chief at least twice and the Pakistani Prime Minister once so that necessary arrangements could be made and a formal protest could be recorded against the U.S.'s breach of promise at the very beginning of the talks. According to the Iranian news agency, the talks with the U.S. delegation continued for more than 21 hours. During this time, Iran repeatedly presented its proposals and tried to bring the U.S. side towards realism. Tasnim news agency claims that the U.S.'s excessive demands at every stage hindered reaching a common framework. The talks ended without any results due to the lack of flexibility in the U.S. position. The news added that no program regarding the time, place, and procedure of the next round of talks has been announced yet.